Presidential salute! Present! Out!
Yes, sir!
now invite Kes Wolde Dawit Alling, the representative of the Interfaith Religious Organization, to offer a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Well, women Feskidus, Ahadu Amlak, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, your name is holy and dignified. Knowledge, so that they can fulfill their duties and responsibilities for the will and good pleasure, especially in the areas of our finance and our social needs. Grant us to walk according to your order, O Lord. Father, we acknowledge our sin, and our transgression is always before your face. But we seek your forgiveness this morning, and we repent of all the things that we have done knowingly or unknowingly, willingly or unwillingly, that is contrary to your law. We beg your forgiveness. Here, as we humble ourselves before you, let your will take our lives. Guide our paths into every good work. And in every evil work, may you keep us apart. Be with us at this hour and stand in the midst of us. Thank you for your Son that you have sent to save us from this darkness that we are surrounded by. Of your kingdom, as he left with us, help us to emulate it and to practice it so that our lives would be fulfilled and our purpose that you have sent us on this earth to fulfill. May the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be always acceptable in your presence, through our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit forever and ever, one God. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Let us all be seated. I now invite members of this honorable house to introduce yourselves to Her Excellency by your name, your electoral district, and your title. We will begin with the Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. Big time Councillor Kwesi Devines, Leader of Assembly Business and Secretary responsible for infrastructure, quarries, and the environment.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Kelvin Charles, Assemblyman for Blackrock, Wim, Spring Garden. I am the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, as well as the Secretary for Education, Innovation, and Energy.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Your Excellency, my name is Joel Jack, Assemblyman for the Electoral District of Bacalet, Mount St. George. I'm also the Secretary with Responsibility for Finance and Economy. Welcome to Tobago.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Councillor Nadine Stewart Phillips, Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transport.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Hayden Spencer, Area Representative for Goodwood Belgarden West, and I'm Secretary responsible for food production, forestry, and fisheries.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. My name is Joe Mopit, Area Representative for Lambo Signal Hill, and also the Secretary for Sport and Defense.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. My name is Marcelin Melville Jack. I'm the Area Representative for Scarborough Calder Hall, and I'm the Secretary of Community Development, Enterprise Development, and Labor.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. Your Excellency, my name is Clarence Jacob, Area Representative for Canaan, Bonaccord, and Secretary for Settlements, Urban Renewal, and Public Utility. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Your Excellency, my name is Councillor Dr. Agatha Carrington. I'm the Secretary of Health, Wellness, and Family Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Assemblyman Sheldon Cunningham, the representative for Providence, Mason Hall, Moriah. I am the Assistant Secretary of the Infrastructure, Quarries, and the Environment.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Marisha Osmond, Assemblyman and Area Representative for the Electoral District of Plymouth, Golden Lane.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Assemblyman Shomari Hector, Area Representative for the Electoral District of Bethel, Mount Irving, and the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development, and Labor.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. Your Excellency, I am Assemblyman Ansel Dennis, Member for Buku Mount Pleasant, Deputy Presiding Officer, and Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I am Your Excellency, I am Minority Assemblyman Farley Chavez Augustine, and I am the Area Representative for Tobago's most beautiful electoral district of Paula-Mae, Lansowe, Speyside.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Your Excellency, Watson Duke. I'm from the District of Belgarden East, Roxborough, Dallaford, and I'm also the Minority Leader in the Tobago House of Assembly. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, Your Excellency. I am Dr. Faith B. Israel, formerly Faith Brebner, and I am the Minority Councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly.
The Presiding Officer will now deliver the official welcome.
Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Paula-Mae Weeks, Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chief Secretary, Honorable Kelvin Charles and Mrs. Charles, Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs and Member of Parliament for Tobago West, the Honorable Shamfa Kujo, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Vice President of the Senate, Mr. Nigel De Freitas, Independent Senator, Dr. Maria Dillon Remy, Minority Leader, Assemblyman Watson Duke and Mrs. Duke, other members of the Tobago House of Assembly and your spouses, former parliamentarians and members of the Tobago House of Assembly, including former Chief Secretary, Mr. Hojoy Charles, Chief Administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Ray Sandy, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koroma, Administrators, Clerk of the Assembly, Mrs. Sharon Irvin Comby, Heads of the Armed Forces and Protective Services, clergy, principals, and students, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a special good morning and welcome. This is an historic moment for the residents of Tobago and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago as we officially and warmly welcome the first female president of the country to the chambers of the Tobago Assembly Legislature. This moment in time, I feel proud and privileged, not only as a woman inspired by the achievements of another, but also to occupy the position of presiding officer over today's program. Your Excellency, Paula-Mae Weeks, Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, it is truly my honor to say to you on behalf of the members of the House and all of Tobago, welcome. Welcome to the capital of paradise. It is reassuring that over the past year, you have dispelled any notion of those who believe that there is some measure of tokenism invoked for women to reach greater heights. From your first speech, your message has consistently advocated for us to do better and be better in our lives. Through your activities, we see your commitment to nurturing a better people, your capacity to analyze the challenges of this complex society, and the courage to candidly and openly commend great achievements while discussing shortcomings and saying what needs to be heard instead of what we want to hear. Your depth of passion and sensitivity has been the talk of Tobago even before you visited here and interfaced with the children of Lambo, the youth of Roxborough, and countless other residents. These are characteristics that as a people, both female and male, we must emulate if we are indeed to protect the gains of our foreparents and be closer to achieving their most lofty goals and aspirations. We are blessed that ours is a democracy that sees more women increasingly placing cracks on the proverbial glass ceiling. But democracy will not be as successful as it should if we are not proactive in implementing strategies for consistently addressing both equality and equity for our people in their life choices, living conditions, access to services, and the freedom to meaningfully choose to follow our passions in careers and in choices for work. The Tobagonians' wish is that someday soon we can witness in this said house the passing of laws designed to enhance our rights and privileges, to preserve our indigenous customs, and to accelerate the progress towards a better future. However, The impact of the decisions in any legislature is linked to the extent of engagement of the public and their willingness to participate. The successful implementation further depends on a willingness of the people in public or private sector to introspect and act both individually and collectively to achieve the desired results. In chambers today, there is a blend of those who have served and are serving in an official public capacity, and those who through private partnerships and non-governmental organizations also serve the vulnerable and people in general. The countless others at James Park on regular media and social media platforms must also be acknowledged, and I wish to emphasize that Your Excellency's presence pays tribute to the contributions they have already made, and I am confident it will inspire them to continue participating in the development of the island and the country, especially during these challenging times. It is therefore on behalf of all Tobagonians that I again say a very special welcome to you, Your Excellency. Thanks again for gracing us with your presence. I hope there will be more occasions like this in the future, but at this present time, I, like all listeners, eagerly anticipate your address. Your Excellency, may God richly bless you and keep you. Welcome.
I now invite the minority leader to bring greetings.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Paula-Mae Weeks, ORTT, Chief Secretary, Honorable Kelvin Charles and Mrs. Charles, Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs and Member of Parliament for Tobago West, the Honorable Shamfa Kudjo, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Minister of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Senators, Presiding Officer of Tobago House of Assembly, Dr. Denise Sawyer-Fat, other members of Tobago House of Assembly, and your spouses, former parliamentarians, and members of Tobago House of Assembly, Chief Administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Ray Sandy, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koroma, administrators, Clerk of the Assembly, Mrs. Sharon Irvin Comby, heads of armed forces and protective services, clergy, principals and students, special invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a great pleasure I stand here this morning on behalf of the Minority Council to welcome you, Your Excellency, to this august chamber, this place of history, Tobago House of Assembly. As I stand, my mind races back to a time when I was not born, my parents were not born, and the slave ships were now leaving Africa to make their journey to Tobago. In the 1600s, when Tobago was captured by the British, and the British set up colonial rule. It was a time when agriculture was a thriving industry in our island, and we had our own government, which can be akin to that of Your Excellency, President. It was a time when Tobagonians exercised a sense of self-determination. We had a real nationhood drive. We were seen in comparison with other nations as thriving, as industrious. It was reported that under the British, we once produced the best sugar that could be found anywhere in the world. Even Cuba could not have produced sugar as sweet as Tobago sugar. And then I leapfrog and I come to this day when seated before us, Your Excellency, for yet another time, we see you. As I see you, I see the governor of Tobago. And I hear the cries coming from the graves of those who died with hope. And I hear the cries from the street of people saying, we need our self-determination. Your Excellency, you said you love Tobago, but I came to tell you Tobago love you more. Because when we look at you, we see ourselves. The hairstyle, natural, we see a Tobagoness. And I feel somewhere along the line, one of your descendants were Tobagonian. History may not have recorded it. Because I see Tobago in you. And I came to speak on behalf of those Tobagonians whose voices cannot be heard in the minority and say to you, we wish that sometime, some way, while being the head of state, you would become an advocate, a champion for Tobago being an industrial society again, where agriculture becomes more thriving and not just a plaything, something on the books, but a real thriving industry again. We hope that you could advocate more so for the right to selfhood, the right to self-determination, the right to operate as we were operating even before the 1400s, even before Christopher Columbus said he knew of Tobago. Madam, or Your Excellency, it is with great pride and privilege that I put this before you today, knowing that you are a woman of substance, a woman of commitment, and you love Tobago, and love would take action in your advocacy. I thank you.
I now invite the Chief Secretary, Honorable Kelvin Charles, to bring greetings.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Paula-Mae Weeks, ORTT, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Senators, Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, Dr. Denise Oyafatangas, fellow members of the Tobago House of Assembly and your spouses, former parliamentarians and members of the Tobago House of Assembly, Chief Administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Ray Sandy, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koroma, Administrators, Clerk of the Assembly, Mrs. Sharon Irvin Cumby, Heads of the Armed Forces and Protective Services, members of the clergy, principals and students, specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, it is indeed an esteemed privilege and honor to formally welcome you to this special sitting of the Assembly Legislature. I therefore take this opportunity to extend to you a warm, vibrant, sunshine-filled welcome on behalf of the Executive Council, the entire Tobago House of Assembly, and the beautiful people of Tobago. This is not your first visit to Tobago as President of our nation. However, this week-long visit to Tobago, I am almost certain, has resonated positively both with those who have had the opportunity to meet with you and those who were looking on and kept updated via the various digital platforms. It sends a clear and unambiguous signal that you approach your service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago with unreserved seriousness and commitment. As your visit winds down over the next couple of days, I take this opportunity to say a heartfelt thank you on behalf of all the residents of Tobago. Thank you for taking the necessary steps to ensure that you tangibly function in the office of President of Trinidad and President of Tobago. Deliberately taking action to ensure that this happens speaks strongly of your character, professionalism, honesty, and adherence to your oath. I am fully aware that you are quite familiar with Tobago, as you would have indicated previously in other forums, that you once worked here. However, I am sure that many things have changed since then, and I trust that during this visit, you were able to experience the warm, friendly, welcoming hospitality that characterizes this idyllic destination and its people. Tobago and its people are becoming more and more sensitive to taking an active role in shaping their future and destiny. While migration to Trinidad, other parts of the region, and the world is a very real challenge, especially amongst our intellectual capital, we continue to press on and strive towards excellence. We endeavor to fashion Tobago into a competitive, economically thriving island, equipped with the necessary infrastructure, skills, expertise, and transformational policies to ensure that the island and its people are holistically motivated to function and succeed on the global stage. As I conclude, I trust that this week's visit has impacted you so tremendously so as to prompt the consideration of the establishment of a Tobago office of the Office of the President. By now, you would recognize that the island is much more than rest and relaxation. We boast of the fact that one is afforded the environment to function professionally while simultaneously enjoying the luxury of escaping from the rigors of the desk and its demands. To simply soak up destination treats found in the food, culture, people, and eco-existence that Tobago offers to all. Your Excellency, as you are undoubtedly aware, our motto, Pulcrio Evany, she becomes more beautiful, bears eloquent testament to our quintessential beauty. And therefore, Your Excellency, once again, on behalf of the Executive Council, all in the Tobago House of Assembly, and the people of Tobago, I welcome you and thank you for spending this time with us.
May it please Your Excellency, President Paula-Mae to address the chamber.
Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Kelvin Charles, Minister of State in the Office of Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honorable Ayana Webster Roy, Senator Maria Dillon Ramey, Presiding Officer Dr. Sarafat Angus, Secretaries and other members of the THA, Minority Leader, Assemblyman Watson Duke, Chief Administrator of the House of Assembly, Mr. Ray Sandy, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koroma, members of clergy, students, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It is the morning of day 4 of my 5-day work week in Tobago. And already the staff of the Office of President and I are debating whether we should return to Trinidad on schedule. Tobago is very seductive. It has been an enlightening and extremely productive sojourn. This effort has proven to be quite worthwhile. I hope that it will be as gratifying for Tobago and Tobagonians as it has been for me. While I recognize and celebrate our unitary statehood, I acknowledge that Tobago has its unique ethos, challenges, culture, and viewpoints, and it serves me well as president to hear what Tobagonians and other residents of Tobago are doing, thinking, and feeling, and to hear it on the ground, since I share the perspective of the late American President Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in
unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. The last few days have been filled with fruitful and informative interaction with citizens who were all keen to share their experiences, concerns, and opinions with me. And they may rest assured that not only did I hear, but I listened. It is hoped that the Office of President will work from Tobago regularly. But first, we must evaluate this exercise, including, of course, a cost-benefit analysis. But I feel certain that we will continue to afford those on the island of Tobago as much of an opportunity as their Trinidadian counterparts to have access to the head of state. This special sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly is another and equally meaningful aspect of my visit to Tobago, and I thank your presiding officer, Dr. Soafat Angus, for her kind invitation to address you. You have been conducting the business of the people of Tobago for 39 years. And it is a great privilege for me to witness the solemnity and dedication with which you carry out your legislative mandate to make better provision for the administration of the island of Tobago and for matters connected therewith. You are keepers of a long and checkered legacy, as the Tobago House of Assembly bears the distinction of being our nation's oldest political institution. However, its first incarnation in 1768, and those which followed immediately thereafter, did not consider the will nor cater to the well-being of all Tobagonians, but rather serve the upper echelons of society, specifically the white, male, Christian ruling class. This exclusionary system was perpetuated even in joining the two then colonies, when, despite internal opposition, Trinidad and Tobago were, in 1889, united by an order in council. Fast forward 250 years, and here we are today, with the political landscape of the Twin Islands having changed completely. Now, after a lengthy process of public consultation and debates, the Constitution Amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill 2018 was presented to Parliament last year and is before a joint select committee for evaluation. I trust that the outcome of the many years of discussions, debates, and consultations will silence even the loudest and most critical of the naysayers. As you approach this seminal juncture, may I say that you, or maybe I should say we, because the decision that is made on this is a matter of fundamental importance to all citizens of the Republic. It is prudent for us to take a step back and appreciate how much the THA has evolved. From its original incarnation, it has evolved into its current model, which seeks to serve the people of Tobago with every available resource. The THA has undergone a sea change and has given Tobago its distinct voice in the national discourse and control, to some extent, over its affairs. But questions remain. How loud a voice? How consequential the control? This issue has been on the table for a long time. Some would say far too long. In 1977, former chairman of the THA, Prime Minister and President A.N.R. Robinson, crystallized the argument in a speech delivered in Parliament, calling for greater autonomy for Tobago. One cannot be faulted for thinking that this matter has had a sufficient gestation period to give birth to a resolution which is acceptable to all. The trajectory of Tobago's development depends on it. But the THA has not been idle while it waits, and has continued to develop mechanisms that allow for maximum participation in its affairs. A most interesting feature of your constitution is that any citizen of Trinidad and Tobago residing in Tobago is eligible to stand for office. So says the Tobago House of Assembly Act 1980. And I must confess that I took pattern and entertained a visit from a Trinidadian while I was here. I don't want you to hear it through the grapevine. The THA has not always relied on legislation in order to introduce necessary innovative initiatives. In 2012, when all the seats were won by one party and this assembly was without a minority leader, you established a public interest desk, which provided a vital platform for hearing dissenting views, which otherwise would have gone unheard. This maturity of approach is indeed commendable, and other jurisdictions could do worse than to take pattern. The same maturity will be required to deal with the many challenges being experienced by Tobago today. Hard decisions have to be made. One, about whether go west tourism. Barefooted or shod, Tobago must strategically position itself as a serious player in the global tourism industry. I have traveled to many countries with far less to offer by way of natural attractions than Tobago, yet they are prominent on the radar of international travelers. They have made much of little, and it would be a crying shame if Tobago, with its abundance of natural appeal, does not secure its fair share of the market. The vexed question of the air and sea bridge looms large and is yet to be resolved to the satisfaction of all. Despite valiant attempts to provide reliable service between the islands, one must admit that there is some ways to go before it can be described as optimal. While the flow between the islands is affected both ways, it is Tobagonians and those resident in Tobago that really feel the pinch. The full range of tertiary offerings, certain specialist medical services, and visa applications all call for a visit to Trinidad with the attendant inconvenience and financial burden. Dependable transport between the islands will provide some degree of comfort. Of course, there are districts in Trinidad which may not have easy access to those services either, but Tobago residents start out at the disadvantage of having to factor in the cost of boat or airfare and possibly accommodation even before they face the common difficulties. Not only does Tobago have its peculiar issues, but it also experiences many of the challenges being faced on its sister isle, which challenges must be confronted by the Tobago House of Assembly. Reduced energy revenues, lower direct foreign investment, lower export income, and the increased cost of borrowing have all affected your ability to deliver on projects and promises in a timely fashion. In recent years, Tobago has not been spared environmental problems which affect the lives and livelihoods of its residents, such as the invasion of sargassum seaweed and the decline in the health of coral reef communities. And although, thankfully, nowhere the levels being experienced in Trinidad, crime and violence are taking their toll. I am sure that Tobago is well able to meet these challenges. There is a rich human resource base here that has been ever present and into which you can tap. As president, I will certainly endeavor to do my part. At the inception of my term, it was immediately apparent that the interests of Tobago had no dedicated voice on the Senate's independent bench. That, to my mind, was a concerning deficiency. And so I was pleased to appoint your Dr. Maria Dillon Ramey. Another daughter of your soil, Zola Phillips, is on the reserve bench of temporary independent senators. I consider it a coup to appoint your Dr. Susan Craig James as a member of the Police Service Commission. And as I continue to seek out patriots to render service to the nation, be certain that my eyes are scanning both Trinidad and Tobago. The Tobago House of Assembly is required to lead the charge and lead the change in Tobago. And the mark of true leadership is the ability to surmount obstacles and limitations, all while holding fast to your oath and without sacrificing the tenets by which you stand. It is your duty assemblymen, to leave a rich legacy to those who will one day inherit this noble house. And there is no doubt that you have the intention, capacity, and commitment to do so. I leave you with the words of American clergyman Charles E. Jefferson, words which I believe are opposite to this occasion. Patriotism is a thing of the heart. A man is a patriot if his heart beats true to his country. I wish you all the very best as you discharge your duties to the people of Tobago. May she indeed grow truly more beautiful, and may God bless our nation. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Paula-Mae Weeks, ORTT, Chief Secretary, Honorable Kelvin Charles and Mrs. Charles, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Independent Senator Maria Dillon Remy, Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, Dr. Denise Sawyer-Fat Angus, Minority Leader, Assemblyman Watson Duke and Mrs. Duke, other members of the Tobago House of Assembly and your spouses, former parliamentarians and members of the Tobago House of Assembly, Chief Administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Rees Sandy, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koroma, Administrators, Clerk of the Assembly, Mrs. Sharon Irvin Cumby, Heads of the Armed Forces and Protective Services, members of the clergy, principals and students, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It was just under a year ago, on the 19th of March 2018, when I would have joined thousands of Trinidad and Tobagonians, patriots I dare call us, for the historical moment of the inauguration of you, Madam President, Your Excellency, Paula-Mae Weeks. And at that occasion, you would have said two things that would remain with me. First of all, you would have indicated that our challenge is to be the light and to see the light. Secondly, you would have indicated that people need to be reminded more often than they need to be instructed. And I believe today that your presence would have led us, or would have given us much reminders in terms of our duty here as members of the Assembly, both to our current generation and future generation. Indeed, patriotism is a thing of the heart. To the Chief Secretary, I must thank you for your compendious contribution, and of course, I would invite the President to continue to contemplate the invitation for an office in Tobago. To the presiding officer, indeed, this is a historic occasion, a historic moment. And I would like to thank you for your welcome, and of course, your welcome to the President to the capital of paradise. To the minority leader, I would like to thank you for your typically unrestrained greetings, and to continue to work, as you continue to work with us here in the Assembly. I would also like to thank all persons who have gathered here to share in this occasion, particularly former members of the Assembly and the Parliament, those who have worked behind the scenes to make this occasion happen, and of course to the members of the media who undoubtedly would ensure that the message of the President is transmitted positively. I thank you.
Could we all please stand as the presiding officer and President depart the chamber?